I am standing in front of the biggest tree I have ever seen. And under other circumstances, I might stop to notice the grandness, to ponder its history. But today, as it lays across my path, it is just one more obstacle in a day filled with obstacles. Over or under? I say to Lisa, my partner in this adventure. Her response is a deep sigh. But in her defense, there really isn't a better answer. Under is about 3 feet, and most of it is mud and rocks and sticks. And over, well, it's about shoulder height is the top of the tree. My eyes go to the unspoken third option, climb up the bank of the creek we're standing in, walk around the tree. Don't even think about it, Lisa says, seeing where my eyes have gone. We made a rule. We are staying in this creek no matter what. Yeah, we made the rule, so we could break the rule, because who's gonna know? We'll know. Lisa walks up to the tree, looks at it for a second, looks back at me and says, over. She braces her feet, she cups her hands. I think, fine, your stupid rule, your dirty hands. And I put my dirty, muddy sneakers into her hands. I lift myself up and I brace myself against the side of the tree. This scenario never figured into our vision for today. For 6 years, we had been talking about walking along the creek up to where it empties out into Lake Ontario, about a mile up from our houses. We talked about it endlessly. We were obsessed. Probably because for 2 suburban, sheltered, upper-middle-class girls, this seemed like the craziest adventure ever. But after 6 years, I kind of resigned myself to the fact that it would just stay an idea. Then one day in the summer between high school and college, Lisa says, we are doing this. We are doing this walk, and we're doing it before we go to college. And I said, okay, how about tomorrow? How hard can it be? So the next morning, I meet her behind her house at 10:30 in the morning. We're both wearing shorts and t-shirts and look head, tennis shoes, no socks. And we're both carrying backpacks. And they have in them water, an apple, a granola bar, more props than provisions, really. We were pretty sure we'd be home by lunch, no big deal. So we set out. In the first 15 minutes or so, it's really more creek bed than creek, and it's sheltered by the trees, and it's quite lovely, actually. And then we get to the road that we have to go under, and we knew this was coming, and the tunnel is pretty big, and we can stand up, more or less, walk through, and sort of hunch down, we look at each other, and we giggle. This is exactly what we've been picturing for our adventure. So out the other side, more or less, more of the same. And we're so engrossed in this conversation about what college boys are going to be like that we don't notice this subtle transition from creek bed to creek until Lisa takes a step onto this mossy stone and just flat on her butt and several inches of water. 30 more yards, we make it through. Suddenly we're standing in front of another road and another tunnel that we didn't know was going to be there. This tunnel, a little smaller, a little darker, and we can't see through to the other side. I look at Lisa. So we have to go through, right? And she nods and then takes a step back. So I have to go first. All right, fine. So I squat down and I'm sort of duck walking through the tunnel and I kind of say, it's not like it's not going to open, right? Because we know the creek runs through, goes to the lake, so it's going to be fine. And from this embodied voice behind me, I hear, yeah, unless that's another creek and this creek goes to Ohio. That's fine. That can't really happen, right? And I start to get nervous, thinking, I didn't consider that. Wonder what else I didn't consider could happen on this journey. But then right then I start to see light up ahead, and I get excited, so I start going a little bit faster. And in my enthusiasm to get out of this tunnel, I fail to notice that there's about a 1-foot gap between the tunnel and the creek bed. But it's okay, because there's a lot of mud to cushion my fall, so it's fine. So the next 45 minutes or so is this dizzying walk in and out of the woods, and we're climbing over rocks, and my kedless treads, and I'm sliding and slipping, and we're dodging branches and bugs, and we get to thick brambles, and the creek is more or less dried up. We're sort of following this vaguely muddy trench through these brambles and overgrown interlaced trees, and I kind of pause for a second, and I look around for the first time, and I don't recognize anything. And Lisa, where are we? And she looks around and she goes, oh, yeah, we're halfway. We are so deep into the woods we didn't even know got this deep or this untamed, that we can't see anything familiar in our own neighborhood. We can't even see the sky. Lisa, what if we're not almost there? What if we're walking in circles? What if this isn't even the right creek anymore? And she says, well, do you want to turn back? And I think I look back and I look at the nicks and the cuts and the scrapes and this weird rash that's sort of forming on my shins, and I look at the welt on Lisa's face from that branch that I let go of too soon. And I have no enthusiasm for doing that again, especially in defeat. And I look at my watch, it's 1:30. We've got to be almost there. So we decide we're going to do this. We decide we can climb over this bramble of trees for just a few more scrapes and cuts, and at really this point, who's counting? So we get over it, and we're going, and now we really are almost there. We can hear the sounds from the park that borders the lake. All we have to do is get over this big, stupid fucking tree that is blocking our path. 1, 2, 3. Lisa heaves me up, and I grab into the side of this tree, and I pull with everything I've got, and I come up, and I'm on my stomach, and my arms are on fire, and I look, and I essentially have just gigantic raspberries up each underside of my arm, but I'm up. And I turn around, I maneuver myself around to try to help Lisa up, and I reach down, and I grasp her arms, and she grasps my arms, and I pull, and she pulls, and she jumps, and we get nothing. We try again, and she digs into the side of the tree. And we pull, and she jumps, and she pulls, and we got nothing. And I let go, and she looks at me gravely, and she says, under. I said, yeah. So I sit up, and I go, and I realize I don't really have a good path off of this tree. So I do the only thing I can think of. I put my feet straight out, and I put my hands, and I just shove off. And it works. I go down, scrape up a good part of my back, hit the ground, and it kind of scratches. To me, it felt like I'd left part of a kidney up there, but it was probably fine. And I said, I'm not going to think about that. I'm just going to focus on Lisa. She's army crawling under this huge freaking tree. And she stands up, and she's brushing off the dirt and the blood and the leaves, and I just lose it. This is insane. What if this is the stupidest thing we have ever done? What if we never get out of here? What if we die and they don't ever find our bodies? And I knew I was being a little bit dramatic, but I was over this. I was done. I wanted to get back to my regular summer. We had been here for what felt like years, okay? In my normal life, the hardest part of my day is getting too hot walking to the pool. And I looked at Lisa and I said, I want my life back. And she looked at me and said, we are almost there. And she turned around and she walked away. I had no choice but to follow her. And within a few more yards and a couple more falls, and a few more bug bites, we really did start to re-enter civilization. And the creek started to get wider, and the going got easier, and we're moving through faster and faster, and all of a sudden, there it is. The lake, we can see it, and we're focused on it, and all of a sudden, none of this matters, and we are feeling so good, and our blisters and our sunburns and our scrapes, and they don't matter, and we're running, and we're going, and then before we know it, we are there. We're at that spot where the creek kisses the open water that separates New York State from Canada, and we jump up in the air, and we're screaming, and we are hugging like conquering heroes on an invaded beach. 6 hours after leaving home. And we haul ourselves over to the grassy area, and we eat our soggy granola bars and our bruised apples, and we drink our warm water. As it starts to get dark, we take ourselves out to the road to walk home. And during that 20-minute walk, we start reminiscing about our great and wonderful and adventurous and fun and not at all crappy venture to the lake.